Looks like we are live now, so whenever you are ready, Chairman, you call the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. And I've got 3 o'clock. So we'll call the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Administrator Controller Search Ad Hoc Committee to order. I'm Chairperson Tobin Hope. I'm attending remotely from my home in the city of Mount Pleasant County.
I am Terry Hutchison, present from my office in Clare, Michigan.
I am Jim Horton. I'm attending from my office in Big Rapids, Michigan, Mecosta County.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Jessica, do we have anyone on the line?
There is no public comment at this time. There's no
Thank you.
public on the line. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move right on to draft schedule discussion. I believe we all got the draft schedule in our email, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to review it. I don't have any problems or conflicts with it personally, so.
Mr. Hope, could I, Chairman Hope, could I walk through the schedule with the committee and kind of give them some little background too, possibly?
That would be great.
Okay, so Jessica and I have pulled out, well, Jessica found the file from 8 years ago, and we've kind of looked at the process that was used back then. So this schedule that I put together, this draft schedule, kind of starts with, you start doing this like with what you want at the end. So what date do we want to look at the end that the Board of Commissioners has a new administrator controller on, and then work backwards. So my contract will expire on December 31st. So obviously we want somebody before I leave. And looking at kind of looking at the schedule and figuring out how many days it takes. And as somebody who has hired, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds, if not more people over the course of my career, it always ends up, there's always something along the line someplace that takes longer than you think it's going to take, right? So we know that. So we were looking at the fact that, you know, the holidays this year in December, the way the holidays fall is that the county is closed the 23rd and 24th for the Christmas holidays. So trying to figure out, you know, if I was going to be here and help somebody transition, that's also a delicate balance between making sure the new person, you know, is able to take office and have whatever information that we could, you know, introduce them to people, that type of thing, but not be here too long that it's kind of confusing of who's in charge. And I don't want to do that to a new person. So I'm really looking at, you know, kind of what would be a hire date. And the hire date also depends on how many days notice anybody that you're going to hire would have to give. So if they were a county administrator, controller, administrator, or a controller, or both someplace else, most of those contracts have between a 45 and a 60-day notification. But they usually also have a clause that if both parties agree between the Board of Commissioners and that employee, that they can be let out of their contract in an earlier date. So I kind of looked at this November 29th on the draft here that says new administrator controller starts. That would look at giving that person 45 days. They may need 60 days, which then would roll it down, you know, to a shorter period. But if you look at that and you kind of use that as an example and you think about how long it takes to get all of this accomplished, based on that, let's go back to the front of that schedule, which if you look at on the 6th, which was last Friday on August 6th, the job has been posted. So it has been posted in the newspaper. It has been posted at the Michigan Association of Counties. It's been posted at Pure Talent Michigan. and a couple other places that I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I just can't think of off the top of my head. But fairly typical places to post that type of an application. So, looking at giving adequate time for applications to be received from those who are interested, then the draft date is the 27th of August to receive those. Those applications then, last time, the administrative staff went through to make sure that people had the minimum requirements. So it requires a bachelor's, says for example, requires a bachelor's, says a master's is preferred. But there's also a clause in the job description about any combination of those. So were we to get an application that came in that did not have at least a bachelor's, that person wouldn't meet the qualifications, right? So we would go through and do that, and then all of those qualified applications, this is just some suggestions, all the qualified applications would go to the ad hoc committee, and the ad hoc committee would receive those, read through those, come back a week later, and send to administration a list of rankings. So if there's 10 applications, for example, you would rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we would compile those. And out of the three of you, the most points that anybody could have, the most number ones you could have would be 3, obviously. So then the ad hoc committee could meet on the 17th, and they could go through those and go, okay, well, these are the 3 to 5 people we want to interview. And then they could make a recommendation to the full board in a closed session on the 21st, because one thing I want to make clear to all of you is that people have the ability and the right to have their application be confidential up to the point that the Board of Commissioners decides who they're going to interview. So if somebody says they want their application to be confidential, it needs to be confidential until after that closed session. And at which point I will tell you, in my experience, during the meeting of the closed session, between the meetings, I received a phone call from Chairman Green telling me that I had been selected as one of the finalists, and did I want to move forward in the process because my application would become public that night. I said, yes, I did. So that would be something that I would work with Chairman Horton on to make sure that he had that information. And then once the Board of Commissioners selected who they wanted to interview, my team would notify those folks and schedule the interviews. In the past, there was a list of questions that were sent to the applicants when I was the applicant. We can look at those at a later date, decide if you want to do that or not. Some of those questions also then were included in the interview questions, which didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, but whatever the board wants to do. And then you would interview those folks, and then you could, you would recommend those folks. Then we would schedule the interviews. The interviews, according to this schedule, would happen at a special Board of Commissioners meeting on Saturday, the 2nd of October. Those interviews have to be in a public meeting. So those would happen at a special Board of Commissioners meeting. Perhaps you would be able to deliberate that night probably and decide on who you wanted to make an offer. And then either that day or Sunday or Monday, the chairman of the board could call and offer a conditional offer of employment based on the background checks. Background checks need to happen after you've made a conditional offer of employment. You can't do a background check on everybody who applies. That has to be a condition of employment. Our background checks are a national background check, just so that you know that, so that we have a lot of our applicants for a lot of our jobs are from all over the United States, primarily because of the draw of Central Michigan University. We have students from all over. So our background checks that we do now are across the entire country. So you could make a conditional offer. Hopefully then the chairperson would be able to negotiate an agreement with that person once we got that information back, and it takes a couple days. And then the selected candidate would be able to give their notice for employment. And then that ends up starting your 45 days or your 60 days or your 30 days or however long that candidate would need to have to give to their current employer. So that's kind of looking at the schedule. Again, you kind of need to start at the back and work your way to the front. So if that was confusing, I'm sorry, but there really isn't any other way to kind of figure it out. You know, you can pick a date to go, oh, we'll accept the deadline for applications X date. But if it doesn't work into the schedule, it ends up becoming an issue. And that's the draft that I would recommend. I also, in your packet, which we're not going to need to discuss today necessarily, but I thought it would be interesting information to you to see about the legal and illegal interview questions. And they're not just interview questions, they're just commentary also about what you can and can't talk to any applicants about. So if you happen to be here for the Board of Commissioners interviews, which you would all participate in, you can't ask somebody anything that would be a leading question to refer to, how many children do you have? What does your spouse do for a living? Oh, is your spouse going to relocate with you? Well, geez, that's a long way for them to drive back and forth. I mean, even saying something which sounds like a friendly discussion about, wow, that'd be a long way for them, is really something that you can't ask somebody. So those are kind of just informed for down the road for you. I also included in your packet the ad that appeared. It's going to be in the Morning Sun, or has already been in the Morning Sun under employment opportunities. And then the more expanded posting that went to the Michigan Association of Counties and the other folks, so you can kind of see them. Also in your packet, I put a copy of the current job description, which is the job description as a result of the classification compensation study. So that's kind of what I put together as a draft, all sorts of drafts to come to the ad hoc committee. We're willing to massage anything, change anything how you would like it, or look at how you want it, but it is it's a process, and the process takes time. And there's going to be a glitch somewhere in the schedule. Rest assured, somebody's going to get sick and not be able to be here for something, or something's going to happen. I just wanted to give as much room as possible to make sure that we can be as inclusive as possible.
Thank you, Margaret. It looks pretty good. Of note will be that October 2nd special board meeting for interviews. That's a Saturday, so keep that in mind. So basically, you will weed out the applications that don't meet the minimum qualifications.
Well, that's what they did last time. Maybe the ad hoc committee would like to see every application. I will tell you, according to the schedule from the last time, that schedule referred to HR staff determines who meets the minimum qualifications. I mean, I certainly, if the ad hoc committee wants to see every single application, you certainly can. And if that's a function that you folks want to do, you certainly can. And we're happy to provide them to you, whatever the ad hoc committee wants to do.
Okay. Appreciate it. I guess it kind of depends on how many there are. I don't want to look at 300 applications, but
No.
we probably won't have that many, but you never know.
I learned a long time ago, when I was younger in my career, and I thought if you didn't have a huge number of applications, then you wouldn't necessarily have a good pool. But I also learned throughout my career that, you can have, as you said, 300, or you can have 10, or you can have 5. But if you have one of the either 300 or the 5 seems to be the right person, then that's all you need. So I don't think that I think you'll have plenty of applicants. I think you'll have good applicants. But I don't think that you're going to have a huge number. I wouldn't expect that you'd have 50 applicants or 25.
Okay, it sounds good. The other thing I want to mention, that I like the spreadsheet on the legal versus illegal. That's a handy reference there. Appreciate it.
And
Yeah,
then,
we had that same type of spreadsheet when we were hiring superintendents and applications at the school. And it really does give you questions and answers that you can't do. And you just don't want to go down the path of ask a question and just ask a silly question. But yeah, you have to, and I think you do have to have parameters of weeding things out. It just makes it, the whole process go smoother.
yes. And I will tell you that, I will supply the ad hoc committee and any of the members. I mean, all of our committee stuff goes out to all the commissioners. So I'll supply a listing of the interview questions from the last time, and then I'll supply you with a listing of interview questions that over the course of my career, I have put together for the top level positions. And I think that, again, with no disrespect to the committee before or the board, I think the questions before, when I was participating in them, I saw them differently, but I was looking at them last week. They elicited discussion from me because I like to talk and I'm a people person. So I was happy to expand, but a lot of the questions could have been yes, no, very short answers. And I think you want to get to know candidates more than that in the interview. So I'll
Definitely.
supply you all with the set that was there last time and then some others that I have. The listing I'll supply you that I have compiled over the years. There's a number of questions and you would probably not want to ask them all. I think there's like 25 on that sheet and they prompt discussion. So those would be very, very long interviews. So I think that the ad hoc committee should kind of look those over and say, okay, well, these look good and maybe not those. You can decide what you think is best.
Okay.
But again, in the end, when you recommend who's going to be interviewed, those interviews, I mean, it's the entire board of commissioners, obviously, and the entire board of commissioners are the ones who will vote and decide who they want to make the offer to and authorize the chairperson to start those negotiations.
Sounds good.
Chairman Hope.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple questions, Mark, and I'm going to work backwards in regards to everything. Starting with the October 2nd Board of Commissioners special meeting for interviews. I can't remember the exact agenda, how that went last time. I knew, if I recall, it was in the afternoon we held our meetings, I think, because didn't you have a tour before that?
So how you did those as the board did that and it doesn't have to be on a Saturday.
Right.
I just picked a Saturday because
No,
it was
yep.
last time. I was the first interview last time and I started at 12:45.
Okay. And I can't remember exactly, I can't remember how we did that after we did the interviews and the special meeting for the interviews. And then I can't remember if we took a break and then we did motions. I remember there were several motions. I know we didn't go back into closed session, I don't think, to discuss, or did.
Well, the interviews can't be in closed session. And
I know the
your
interviews
deliberation can't be in
Right.
closed session.
That's what I thought.
I'll tell you, I was the first interview. I was at 12:45.
Mhm.
And that after I left that day, I received a call that evening about, I don't know, I went to 5 o'clock mass, maybe 6:15 or 6:30 from then chairman asking me if I would be interested in accepting the job. So I know you interviewed 3 people. I think they were all like an hour and a half, maybe in length. I don't know everybody else's, but I'm assuming that you must have taken a break and then came back, but I don't know. Of course, I wasn't part of the deliberation.
Yeah, I was just trying to think how the order and how that would play out. I know, like I said, I couldn't remember. I don't think we went into closed session. You answered that. And I do remember then we did make several motions, and that's all it was, just like you would anything else in hiring, you make a motion, use your seconds, and then you vote accordingly. So, all right. Let's see here. In regards to the meetings, I see, what does it look like? Oh, I want to just read my own handwriting here. Let me see. Virtuality. I'm assuming that most of these will be virtual. How is the procedure going to be as far as getting applications and reviewing them and discussing them? Obviously, do we go in and pick them up? Do we go in and review? Do we just send them by email attachments? Obviously there's not the level of, well, there's a confidentiality issue, but how are we going to be comfortable in doing that? Sending them by email securely? How's that going to work?
So the applications are coming in via email to the admin@isabellacounty.org address.
Okay.
And we're requesting a cover letter, a resume, college transcripts, and a county employment application. And they're coming to the attention of the Board of Commissioners, either here in the posting is a mailing address for the Board of Commissioners, and also the admin email address, which is the general email address that we get FOIAs in and applications all the time. So they would come here. I would think some of them will come by mail. I would think some of them will come by email. You know, whatever comes by mail, we would probably scan in and send out that way along with the email ones so that you have them. Or if the committee would prefer, or the board members would prefer, we can certainly copy those and get them to you. It's really whatever you prefer. I think I had understood that the ad hoc committee kind of wanted to meet electronically. So really, we'll do whatever it is that you prefer.
Yeah, because I was just looking, I was trying to figure out how many meetings. This says the qualification applications to the ad hoc committee. Let's see.
So the ad
Would
hoc
we-
committee,
would we not, well, my question, I guess my question would be, would we want have a meeting of the ad hoc committee before the rankings go to the administration or after? You have it right now, it's after. Because it looks like we're gonna receive qualified applications on the 9th.
well, you guys can meet whenever you want to tell me you want to meet. So
No,
whatever.
I was just wondering if we
wanna
want to
do.
have, are these recordings, I mean, are these broadcasts on YouTube? I don't know how we can, yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work if we're broadcasting on YouTube, we're talking about people's names. How exactly does that work?
So.
Are we closed session then? Is that kind of?
So
like
I have a phone call into our attorney who's off on a family medical issue,
Mhm.
probably today and tomorrow. I don't have an answer for that. My question is going to be in regards to applicants that request to be kept confidential. You know, how do we make sure that we are doing that? I need to talk to her about that to make sure that I have exactly the right answer for that. My concern is that, you know, I do know this for a fact that once you decide who you're going to interview in the interviews cannot happen in a closed session. They have to be in an open session. But I think the ad hoc committee could probably go into a closed session like any other committee can to look through the applications. But I don't see, I mean, I don't see how you go, oh, well, these 3 want to be confidential, but these 6 don't care. So
You're gonna,
it's
I
gotta
would
be
agree.
consistent.
We can keep them all confidential, yeah.
It's gotta be
I-
consistent.
Yeah, I would think so. And also too, do we want to have a meeting before we pass up? Do we want to have a meeting before we pass our individual rankings to the administration? Flip flop those days or flip flop a time in there, just so we
Sure.
can, as a group, discuss. Otherwise, we're giving you our rankings and then we're discussing the rankings after we give them. I guess, you know, I don't know if
I
there's.
think the issue is for you to independently rank them independently and then come
Okay.
back together and go, okay, well,
Okay,
these
that makes
ranked-
sense.
these are
Yep.
the top 5 that ranked, but a couple of you really are really interested in whoever ranked 7.
So when I go and, when I go and ask Terry what the heck he was thinking when he did that, he's like, okay, I like that idea. That way it's out there and you're not intimidated. Okay, that makes sense now. Thank you for that. I like that. I like how you got it better now that I asked the question without knowing the answer. So thank you. That clears that up. So, all right, perfect. So I'm looking at, if I'm reading this right, then we have one, let's see. I'm only seeing one. Yeah, I'm only seeing one meeting. Is that correct? Of this committee?
Well, your meeting today,
Yeah,
according to this, and again, it can be changed, certainly whatever you want to do. Your
Mhm.
meeting today, you're meeting again on the 17th.
okay. I did not know that. Okay.
Yep, you're meeting again on September 17th.
Oh, September. Hold on. Let me look here.
Yep, ad hoc committee meeting.
That's the first, okay, right?
Yep, so you're meeting today, you're meeting on the 17th, and then you're going from that meeting into a closed session recommendation on the 21st. So the ad hoc committee would be making a recommendation on the 21st in closed session to the board,
Okay.
who to interview. And
Okay.
once you make that decision and the board decides they're going to accept your recommendation or not, or they want to add this person or whatever, then from that point, probably that evening, you're going to announce who the finalists are. And we're going to start, then it's out in the open. If they want to be a finalist and considered moving on, because then we're going to start doing the notify the selected candidates and schedule the interviews. You know, people need time to get something like that scheduled. I mean, if you've got people who are traveling or people who have to, make arrangements in their personal life so they can be here. The question I have, and I'm not wedded to having the special board meeting on the 2nd on a Saturday. I don't know if the committee or the Board of Commissioners wants to do that. The committee might say, no, why are we doing that, Margaret? Why don't we have those interviews on, I don't know, I'm making it up, on Thursday or Friday? I think the issue for Saturday is that your candidates are employed. But again, it's up to you. I mean, people want that enough, they can take a day off. It's whatever you want to do.
Yeah, personally, just my opinion, personally, I can do a Saturday meeting, but I'm interested in what everyone else thinks. But I want to back up to that September 17th meeting where we're going to discuss our rankings and then prepare recommendations to the full board. Are we going to have to do that meeting in closed session?
Yes, I think you will. That was my point. I need to check with our attorney.
Okay,
I would think that you would, but again, I was unable to talk to her today.
okay,
I would think that the ad hoc committee would meet in closed session that day.
yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And I also think, just a point of information, because a candidate wants to have their candidacy be confidential, that's an inconsequential thing. People want that to be confidential for all sorts of reasons. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not indifferent, it just is their right. So I think that that's something not to be concerned about if you see that in a cover letter that they are requesting that, because they have to request it in writing.
Sure.
And I would suggest, I know the last time in the interview process, I know that however many questions there were that the board was going to ask after they selected their questions or put their questions together, and I would recommend that we do this too. It just you start at one end of the dais and you just go around. So Mr. Hope would ask a question, Mr. Engler would ask a question, Mr. Hutchinson would ask a question, whatever. I'm not going to ask a question. I'm there to serve as your administrative support. I know when I interviewed, the clerk did ask one of the questions because she was sitting at the dais. I don't have any problem if you want the clerk to do that. If you don't, whatever. But I just think that you just kind of go around, and you've all interviewed before. You all understand how all that works, but you just want to make sure that they're having an opportunity to interact with each person on the board as they ask the questions. I think that's important.
Right. Yep. I've done job interviews that way. I think that works well that way. If you just go kind of a round robin type thing.
I don't know.
Go ahead. Will we have questions too? Sorry to interrupt. Will we have questions prepared for each candidate? The same candidates get the same questions, or are we
Every
free to-
candidate gets asked the same questions.
Okay.
You don't ask different questions of different candidates. Again, that's a fairness and a way of making sure that everybody gets the same question.
Gotcha.
So we will put together, once you start, I'll send you some options, and once you guys decide what it is you want, we'll put together a packet for you, for all the board of commissioners, that will have those questions and space in between that you can write. That's how I do it when I interview people. I do have a funny little story in case you want a little levity. And Mr. Commissioner Horton was there, but he may not have realized. So when I was in my interview, I was sitting in the Board of Commissioners chambers, at that presentation table. And I was sitting there, and I, at one point underneath the table, I had a very long skirt on and very high heels. And I crossed my legs, and I was sitting there, and during the interview, I had the feeling that something was crawling up my leg. And as a person who taught people how to interview for years, I knew not to go, oh my God, but I was sure there was a spider crawling up my leg. And I was just keeping my hands on the count, and I was trying to stay concentrated. And then all of a sudden the microphone started moving away from me on the table, that microphone stand. And I thought, okay, there's a spider crawling on my leg and something weird is happening here with the microphone, but I'm good. And at some point, I don't remember the question that was asked, but the previous sheriff, Sheriff Leo, was in the audience observing the interviews, and he was behind me to the side, and I had said hello to him when I walked in. And I was sitting there, and I was going to use him as an example of something. I don't remember what it was. And I said, oh yes, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the sheriff would understand that. And the sheriff leaned forward. He said, Margaret, could I help you with that cord that you have wrapped around your ankle? And what had happened was I must have been twisting my foot, and it wrapped the cord to the microphone around my ankle. So it was not a spider, it was the microphone, but the microphone was getting away from me because it was wrapping tighter around my ankle. So the sheriff was going to come save me. There wasn't any need to do it, but it was a good example of don't let the people at the dais see that I am having an issue here, because you don't want to do that as somebody who's interviewing. But it's important to ask everybody the same questions.
I think so too. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, I think a lot of times when you do that, you kind of get a feed of the response from candidate to candidate, and it's, you get a better feel.
Mhm. Mhm. You also make sure that innocently enough, you don't veer off into some place you shouldn't go.
Yep.
We have Commissioner Jalazinski and Commissioner Engler here. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of it, first of all, but also on the October 2nd, doing that meeting on a Saturday?
No, I don't have any problem with that. Farming is not a 5 days a week job anyways. It kind of, whenever the job needs to be done, we just do it. So I don't have on a Saturday, so.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with the second.
Good. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Chairman Hope,
Yes.
I agree just in asking the two commissioners. I think also the quicker we put that date out there for the other two commissioners,
Yep.
my math is, no, three commissioners, no, two commissioners, Jesus. The other two commissioners, just to make sure that they're aware of that, there will be a special meeting on that day as planned. So they'll know. So I think that'd be a good thing to do. Just, it's far enough out there that barring anything, you know, like a child's wedding, you know what I'm saying? I think it
Yep.
can be planned for, so.
And I will let the clerk know too, because obviously she'll need to clerk it. So I'll let the clerk know. But again, you know, look this, I mean, I guess it would be, I think it would be helpful, Chairman Hope, maybe if we accept or you do whatever the draft schedule. But I also think, just as Commissioner Horton just said, you know, if you're looking at this tonight, you go, oh, that's my niece's wedding that day. Not carved in cement, right? We can make adjustments. But I think if we kind of, if the ad hoc committee kind of concurs that you like the way it's laid out as far as the schedule, it would be helpful to myself and my staff that we knew these were the target dates we're aiming for at this point, or this is what we're going through, barring anything that puts us in another direction.
Mark, another quick question in regard to that October 2nd date. Since that is going to be a special meeting that has to be noticed, how
Right.
far out as far as notice goes and everything does that have to be done?
Oh, you have plenty of time. We're
Okay.
fine. We'll make sure it's noticed and it's published correctly and that it's a special meeting, and we'll make sure, we'll take care of all that. So that'll all get posted appropriately.
All right, we had this titled as a draft schedule discussion. Just leave it at that then, and get hold of the other two board members to make sure that date fits, and then
Well, you can, just because it says it's a discussion doesn't mean that you guys can't say, okay, we accept the draft. If you don't
I mean,
want to
this-
accept, that's fine too. We can just go with it.
yeah, I mean, this isn't, my opinion, it's informal. We can make it more formal, but I don't know if it's necessary to have a motion in the support of this. What, Commissioner Hope, that's up to you. I mean, Chairman Hope, that's, how do you
Well,
want to handle that?
how about we do this? How about if we entertain a motion to accept the draft schedule with the understanding that it may be necessary to make some changes down the road?
I'll make a motion that we accept the draft schedule as proposed with the understanding that that may be subject to change depending on schedules of other commissioners.
Great.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that, say nay. Okay, we have a schedule. And we have a nice spreadsheet of things you can and cannot ask. And so the posting's up and we're on our way.
Very good.
Anything else? We'll move on to other business. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Funny stuff. Okay. Then we'll move on to public comment. Jessica, is there anyone on the line?
There's no public at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Then hearing no further comments, I don't see anyone with their hand raised. So we will adjourn at 3:35 p.m.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
See you
Bye-bye.
in the morning. Yep.
It's
Bye-bye.
storming here in Big Rapids, let everyone know that. So,
Yeah, it's on its way.
Well,
So,
We'll see all of you tomorrow in committee
All right.
meetings. Bye-bye.
Okay.
see ya.
Bye.